Good afternoon and happy Easter. We're so happy that we have good weather today. And I have those two ladies who join me here on this WGXC discussion radio talk. And today's talk is on artist Florine Stettheimer's Art for People. And I would like to ask, and then we have Maria Ausherman and Fontaine Dunn will join us here. We'll be discussing Florine. What can you tell me about Florine to start with, Maria?
Okay. Well, there's a number of reasons we should talk about her, really. She created a fun-loving experimental style. Second, she dealt with subject matter through a female lens. And third, she was one of the first artists to document both the architecture and the culture of early 20th century New York City. In a nutshell, we're going to reveal how she was one of the most innovative artists of the 20th century. And by the way, her work still seems very relevant today.
Mhm. Now, why is uh, Florine Fontaine? Sometimes I'm losing my my train of thought. Uh, can you say something about this?
Yes. Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here and thank you for hosting us. Well, for one thing, she came from a wealthy German Jewish family from Rochester, New York. And that her father abandoned her family when she was just 7. Uh,
Wow.
of the 5 children in the family, 2 moved to California, the 2 older ones. And the mother, Rosetta, took Florine and her 2 sisters, Eddie and Carrie, to live in Europe. Nice, huh?
Yeah.
And those days, especially for women, for some reason, it seems like most women they find their niche in Europe in the early days of women's suffrage.
Yes. Well, she was born in 1871, so I'm not sure how that correlates with suffrage, but in any case, the main thing you could say about her family is that they were wealthy enough to relocate and live in a nice way in Europe and provide her with training. So could you tell us about that, Maria, some of her
Sure.
training?
It really helped that not only was the mother wealthy, but she encouraged independence and higher learning. And Florine, she took painting lessons in Munich and visited museums throughout Italy, France, Spain, and of course, Germany. She knew it at a young age that she wanted to be an artist.
I don't know. Yeah, she exposed to the arts?
Yeah, the mother made sure of that. She did mention that she disliked German culture, which I think is kind of interesting because she did spend a lot of time in Germany. But she said that she didn't like the German culture because it didn't have enough sense of humor, and
Ah,
she thought it was too pompous. I
wow.
thought that was kind of interesting. But her artistic breakthrough came when she was in Paris. She saw a ballet company and she started to design her own ballet after watching this company in Paris.
And something else of note is that her family remained in Europe for 40 years
Yeah.
until World War One forced them to escape to the States, and they landed in New York City and created quite a life for themselves. But she liked, as you say, she disliked the German culture, and she began designing her own ballet. And I'm thinking that explains her interest in theater and set design.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but I have a question for you, Maria. If she spent all that time in Europe, why is she considered an American artist?
Well, I think because most of her paintings deal with New York, and she really was in love with New York. And she knew it so well because she knew a lot of people, a lot of musicians, writers, and artists would come to her apartment after they moved to Alwyn Court in near Carnegie Hall in Columbus Circle. Um, And because she knew everybody, she could paint a lot about what she felt. And they weren't really political, but at the same time, she had a lot to say about inclusion, about racism, about sexism. Um, but she was very satirical. She had, and she had a pretty great sense of humor.
And I know that, excuse me, I know that these salons that she had, there were a lot of gay people who came, and this is at a time when homosexuality was against the law. So
Mhm.
she was very open-minded. Uh,
Yes, she knew people of all races and all religions. Even though she was part Jewish, she didn't practice being a Jew, but she was very, very understanding of about anti-Semitism, and she would joke about it by putting people who were Jewish in a place where they wouldn't even be allowed.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, think about it. At that time, not only was homosexuality against the law, but Jewish people were barred from certain neighborhoods and communities.
Like Lake Placid.
Right. So, Maria, could you tell Carline and me about the 1920s and 30s, which is called the Jazz Age? For one thing, I've always wondered what New York was like back then, and also why do they call it the Jazz Age?
Well, it was a time of economic prosperity, and it was based on the music of the time, and it encouraged spontaneity, creativity. Um, there was a revolution in manners that allowed for freer gender roles. And if you think of the flapper dancers with short dresses and short bobbed haircuts and long cigarette holders.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that. So, what kind of paintings was she making at that time?
She rejected her academic training, and she painted pictures that are brightly colored, naive, theatrical, amusing, full of symbolism and satire. And here you see she painted the first nude self-portrait by a female artist. And
Hmm.
it's very interesting because it's her, and usually artists wouldn't do a self-portrait that way. And at the time she was 45 years old, and that's another thing that's different because usually when you do a nude, you try to pick somebody who's much younger. But
Hmm.
she was very proud of the way she looked.
Well, what do you notice? What is happening in that scene?
Well, it's based on other paintings like Edward Manet's Olympia, Titian's Venus of Urbino, and Goya's Nude Maya. But she is different from all those three paintings because she holds her own flowers. And
Oh, okay.
and so she's asserting her independence. She doesn't need somebody to hold them for her like the other paintings. And she has no need for a maid. And another thing that you should see is that she's completely unadorned.
Yeah.
Usually with these kinds of paintings,
Mm.
there are gifts from suitors to show that she's a kind of prostitute, but she's completely unadorned, showing that she does not need any gifts.
Okay.
So
Oh,
let
all
I'd
right.
like, oh, Carline, is it okay if I ask a question or did you
Go
have
ahead.
more?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I wanted to know, I mean, in that time, was she still doing any work with the theater? Because I know that was a big influence on her.
Oh, yes, she was very busy. She created theater sets and costumes for operas. In fact, she was the first American artist to design stage sets. And the opera she worked on had an entirely African American cast, and none of them, were stereotyped, and none of them were based on caricatures. She wrote poetry as well, and she showed in over 46 exhibitions. Um,
Mm.
and and at that time, by the 1930s, she was second only to Georgia O'Keeffe. She was friends with Georgia O'Keeffe and was considered on the same plane, which is very remarkable because Georgia O'Keeffe was doing very well at that time.
So am I right that that production was something written by Gertrude Stein?
Yes, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
Well,
I think it's really wonderful that she used an African American cast, and it just shows that she was very aware of possibilities.
let me ask you something else. That's in fact what I wanted to pursue is her relationship with her family, because I know that was extremely important to her, and they were very close knit.
Yeah, and you know, I found out a lot about her family ties by reading this wonderful biography of Florine Stettheimer by Barbara Blomink. And she says in the book that she was a wealthy white woman from a family of great privilege. And we've already discussed that. You know, she she had plenty of money, didn't have to worry about that. And as a consequence, I imagine she enjoyed a unique level of freedom.
Now, the question that I have is, how is memory, nostalgia, and the passage of time treated in her work? Because what I'm looking at, the painting nude, she seems to be the setting, the curtains that she has, the fringes and the curtain, and then it shows a setting that in the early days, the Broadway, and I assume that this is a Broadway and pearls on the beds or the chair or the sofa where she lays.
Yeah.
It certainly shows a certain level of wealth, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it does place her in a particular time. It is kind of more old-fashioned than today's starker kind of home decorations, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting that you brought that out, Carline. You know, the curtain in the back doesn't really look like a window drape, does it?
No.
And it
And
doesn't
that's
really
why
look like furniture.
no, that's what I have. I was looking at it, the setting, because when you sit in a room and it seems like the light was coming through the sheer on the window,
Yeah,
and that's how it's a beautiful painting.
it really is. I think it shows a little bit that she's not totally exposed. You know, that like you know how when you're in a like in a hospital room, you have a curtain to separate you from somebody
Yeah,
else. So there's a
yeah.
little bit, she's showing a little bit of an enclosure there, but it's very temporary.
And at the
Mhm.
same time, the curtains are kind of like a lot of her paintings. It's like a stage set with curtains,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
looking at the drama inside.
Mhm.
yeah.
And,
So that's
and
what it is.
I just wanted to make another note about her family situation. Like because of this great wealth, she never had to marry. And as we have talked about with other artists, being freed from the strictures and social demands of marriage gave her a lot of freedom. But this could only happen because she stayed with her. She lived with her mother for her entire life.
Right. There you can see her mother in this second painting here called Heat.
Hmm.
She's sitting in the chair in the middle. That's her mom. And her two
Oh,
sisters are on either side. You were talking about memory. A lot of her paintings are based on her memories of her family.
Hmm.
and is that a tree in the background that she has there? It looks like those trees in a particular time of the year, either fall when the trees are bare.
Yeah, it does look very droopy and kind of
Mhm.
wilted. And I think it's supposed to show that everybody's hot and tired. Um, it it almost seems like you see there's a cake in the front, so you know that there's a celebration, but like the title of the painting, Heat,
Mhm.
everything's kind of wilting and droopy and tired.
Now, when I look at one image, seems to be droopy on the chair, as someone is it was passing out.
Yeah.
It does look that way. These are her two, well, two of the female figures are her sisters, and one of them is Florine herself. But yeah, one of them looks like she's kind of in a swoon, or
Yeah.
fainting from the heat. And
Florine is the one on the right, and she's in the foreground. Well, she seems distant from the others because she's turned away from them, her sisters, and she holds a fan listlessly, and she reaches to a playful kitten. You can see a kitten there. And
that's the one in front, because I'm looking at the one with the heels in black
this
that's
one,
sitting there.
yeah, she's got one of her feet resting on a small stool, and the other foot is bare because her shoe has fallen to the ground.
No, I think you are describing the other painting. I'm talking about this black one here.
I think that's
one, yeah, with the high heels.
I think that's one of her sisters.
And that looks like a thread that she was crocheting or something.
Yeah,
I'm trying to describe. I'm trying to live the setting, because in fact, when I look at the image in black in the background here all the way, it looks like someone who has a lake and behind her with the moon reflecting on the water.
Hard to say whether that's sky or water, but the ambiguity doesn't make it any less of an interesting painting. That figure there in black is her mother, by the way. And this is a celebration of her mother's birthday, I believe. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, you can see the birthday cake in the front at the bottom. There's a big birthday cake.
This the cake right there.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a mandala, and or a sunburst. It's hard to recognize it as a cake, but it's all part of this atmosphere of droopiness and heat. How
and it's almost like the cake is radiating the heat like a sunburst.
It looks like it's melting too.
It's melting too. Yeah, it's kind of a funny picture. The longer you look at it, you realize it's not quite a big celebration, is it?
Yeah, it's really, it has a lot of details for a person, for a painter artist to pay attention to create that much details. The flowers on the table and the humans, the women's hanging around like that.
And it also shows the relationships between her family members, because she didn't really always get along with her sisters, as you can imagine any family is full of dynamics. And her two sisters didn't really think much of Florine's art career. They downplayed it. And also, after Florine passed away, her older sister took some of her work and destroyed it. And Florine was a poet too, and some of her poems were destroyed as well.
But I also read that her sister helped publish some of the poems. So I guess there were just they were editing, because maybe
they edited very, very much.
Yeah, and maybe there were certain hanky-panky things that they didn't want to let the Well, let's take a look at this spring sale at Bendel's. This painting is a hoot. It'll make you laugh. And Bendel's was a very exclusive clothing store back in the 1920s in New York City.
Yeah, this was made in 1928. And if you look closely, you see just a lot of chaos. It's like the day after Thanksgiving, when all the stores have big sales and the people are going wild after those bargains.
Yeah, these customers are like grabbing at things and twirling around, and they're just really excited about getting the latest styles and trying them on.
And the other thing about it, we were talking about set design. She really is showing these people like they're dancers in some sort of ballet. And they're arranged like a stage set. And the entire composition consists of layers of choreographed activities. There's no unified action. And each person seems to be self-absorbed in a world of her own.
And you can see somewhere in here is Henry Bendel himself. And something really cute to take note of, Carline, is that she There's a little dog in here. I think I can't remember if it's a Pekingese or what kind of little dog, but on the sweater of the dog, she had put her own initials.
Yeah, it is a Pekingese dog. And he's sitting right in front of Mr. Bendel.
So is that a celebration or a party or what's going on? And because you said that sale, but I thought it was some sort of an event in the park. But when I looked closely, I see it seems like there is a staircase coming down.
He's making his entrance as the
Yeah.
owner. He's very important. I think
And
she's
then
kind of poking fun at everybody, but at the same time, she's having a lot of fun, and she's showing a deep affection for a store that she probably knew really well.
mhm, that is interesting to see how those people had in the painting. This shows so many brilliant colors.
Mm.
The colors are so vivid and clear.
I agreed. And I love that gold fringe on the curtain.
That's the setting. That's the setting
Yeah,
as well.
It's like the stage has appeared. The show has begun.
Mhm.
I'm just amazed at all her talent. And
we are getting.
What I really like is that she knew how to paint very traditionally, but she rejected that because she wanted to make a more innovative style. And she's having a lot of fun.
So before we leave, because time is running out for this recording that we have here, I have a question. How important were her salons for contributing to the 20s New York art scene? Because it seems like the painting seems to reflect the style of the cabaret, the type of setting that you will see people meeting for entertainment. Because I see a leg in the middle here in this painting. You see the leg and the shoes where I'm holding on what there. It seemed like people were enjoying themselves, talking. It's a social scene.
Oh, yeah.
Very much so.
She loved parties. I know that.
Yeah.
Well, if time is running out, I would just love to read this one quote about her because I find it very interesting. According to Carl van Vechten, and this is, I quote, "She did not inspire love or affection or even warm friendship, but she did elicit interest, respect, admiration, and enthusiasm for her work in art." And my thought about that is, if you can't have it all, I'd go for the respect anytime.
That's right. That's right. If you can't have it all, there was this singer who sang that song. Yeah, I don't remember her name now, but he said, don't cry out loud. Just keep it inside.
Oh, yes. I love that song.
I love it too.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful painting that she has here.
Yeah.
And the way the design with that curtain on this, it's just like the curtain open up to show you the background behind the curtains, what's going on. And you can see there is someone on the side there having a conversation à deux on the side there by the curtain.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you have that person lying down here with the legs showing. It's just like it's really a lovely scene to see.
Yes, and
lovely.
People wanting to see and be seen.
That's right. Okay, I think we are we have covered the 4th series of absolutely amazing American artists.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Carline, for having us. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for teaching me about Florine Stettheimer.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And have a good night, ladies.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay.
I stopped the recording.